Let's bring in great friend of the show, Sky News Australia's Washington correspondent, Annelise Nielsen. Annelise, thanks so much for joining me on the U.S. Report. Now, I want to talk to you a bit about this case of Donald Trump and the fraud, and Trump's lawyers requesting a stay of his $454 million fine that he now owes there, saying there are insurmountable difficulties in finding a lender to back that amount. However, we've just learned that New York Attorney General Letitia James's office are now, as a result, making their initial steps to prepare to seize Trump's assets in New York. Annelise, what's the latest on all of this?
Look, the latest is we'll find out Monday, but this is a really serious issue for Donald Trump. This is a huge amount of money. We're talking about almost $500 million. He's tried to, through his lawyers, secure this money to put up on the assumption that at appeal, if he wins, he'll get it back. But in the meantime, the money still has to be paid over into bond. And one of the issues here is the underwriters that his lawyers have approached, they're saying about 30, haven't been able to, according to the responsible lending requirements in the US, approve that significant amount of money. Generally, you can't get a loan like that with property as a collateral because, somewhat ironically, property has some pretty subjective value to it. And generally, you can only get that money back at sale, and it's very subjective what you actually get for a property when you sell it, which goes to the heart of the entire case. And it's part of the issue that this has been such a controversial case. Among all the accusations against Donald Trump, this is one of the more tenuous ones. It seems like it's one of the ones that he's being pursued on more political grounds. And it's one of the ones his supporters, especially we speak to across the country who are planning on voting for him again, point to quite often as being the case where they feel like he's being persecuted, where he's being singled out. Because when you look at this case, the bank didn't have an issue with putting up the money for his properties in the first place, even if he did inflate the values, which he still maintains he didn't. And the issue here is there's no real victim. No one's come forward and said, I lost out X amount because of Y. And so it's a very unusual scenario to be looking at this kind of situation.
Yeah, and I mean, I'm sure that, many people who are here watching tonight will have gone through the process of getting a second mortgage or refinancing a house. And, they know the banks always do their own due diligence to decide what that property is worth. So, again, if you paid it back, we're not sure where the problem is, especially because the Associated Press has done an analysis where they looked at 70 years of such civil fraud cases, such as this one, and found that it was, quote, according to the AP, the only big business found that was threatened with a shutdown without a showing of obvious victims and major losses. Annelise, does this wind up then, as you suggested before, potentially wind up helping Trump with Americans whose kind of sense of fairness is offended?
Oh, absolutely. And I think a lot of people don't realize too, in America, everyone pays about 1% of property tax on your property value each year. And the government assesses that each year. So we're all very used to the government telling us how much our property's worth, and it's always worth more than whatever you paid for it because they want to get that money back. This is going to be an issue longer term. Likely what we're going to see on Monday is the court say, look, we're going to put some liens on your property, which is legal right for anyone with a lien. They get the first cut if you sell it, and there'll be further push to say, look, you've got to sort this money out. In the meantime, if you don't, then we can start looking at dissolving properties or seizing them. But this is an extraordinary level. As that AP analysis said, this has happened about 7 times in the analysis of when this law has been in effect, and that's nothing insignificant. But Donald Trump is also suffering in the fundraising stakes. He relies on a lot of grassroots donors. He gets a lot of small donors, but the RNC is supposed to be backing him. They're really struggling to raise money. They've raised about $10 million in February, about $11 million in January, well behind the Biden campaign, which has been shoring up cash by not really campaigning at all or having any primaries. So they are going to be in some dire straits if they can't get that money up soon. And don't forget, he's got a lot of other cases coming to courtrooms this year.